Hello everyone, welcome to my new video. In this video, I'll show you step by step how to create a professional looking iPhone commercial animation using After Effects. If you're ready, let's jump straight into the tutorial. Now first, let's create a new composition and give it a name. For the composition settings, you can use the same values I'm using here. Once everything is ready, click OK to create the composition. Now, to create a new background, let's add a white solid layer and rename it to BG, meaning background. This layer will be used as the main background throughout the animation. Now let's bring the first iPhone model into our scene. In the pop-up window, choose Make Comp Size and click OK to add the model to the workspace. With the iPhone model selected, press P to open the Position property. Then, hold Shift and press R followed by S. This way, we open both the rotation and scale properties at the same time. Now adjust the model's size and orientation. Finally, fine-tune the position to place the model correctly in the scene. Now let's bring the second iPhone model into the scene. We'll follow the same steps we used earlier to add the model to our workspace. Choose Make Comp Size to match it to the composition size. Then adjust the scale, rotation, and position to place it properly inside the scene. Now let's add keyframes to both models' position and rotation properties. Then move 100 frames forward on the timeline and create another set of keyframes. Here, set the second model's rotation value to 1 and the first model's value to -1. Now return to the first keyframe and move both models outside the scene. This way, one model will enter from above while the other comes from below and settles into place. Now select all the keyframes and press F9 to apply Easy Ease. Finally, open the graph editor and adjust the motion speed of the keyframes. This will make the animation transitions look much smoother and more professional. Great, now it's time to add our text elements. I already prepared these texts beforehand. To avoid making the video unnecessarily long, I'll speed up this part a little. During this process, I'm adjusting the text placement, size, and overall positioning to match the scene. Small details like these can make a big difference in the final look of the animation. Also, I'll share the download link for the font I'm using in the description. You can download it and easily recreate the same style. Here, let's make the price section stand out more. First, select the pen tool. Turn off the fill and enable only the stroke, keeping the same color as it is. Now, draw a shape layer over the price text. Increase the stroke width so it fully covers the text. Then, move the shape layer below the text layer. Finally, double-click the text layer and change the color to white. This makes the price section more visible and visually emphasized. Now, let's make the edges of the shape layer smoother. Open the shape layer settings, go into the content section. From there, open Shape, then the Stroke settings. Find the Butt Cap option and change it to Round Cap. This will make the ends of the shape look more rounded and visually smoother. Now let's add the AirPods model into our composition. In the pop-up window, choose Make Comp Size again and click OK. Then, hold Ctrl and double-click the anchor point icon to move it to the center of the model. Now, place the model right below the text layers. Press S to open the Scale property and increase its size. Finally, make small adjustments to fine-tune the model's position in the scene. Now let's bring the AirPods model into focus by adding a background behind it. Select the Rectangle tool. Turn off the stroke and set the fill color to black. Now draw a rectangle behind the AirPods. Place the shape layer under the AirPods and adjust its position to sit perfectly in the center. Press T to open the opacity settings and lower it to 25 to make it semi-transparent. Now let's round the edges of the shape. Open the shape layer settings and go into Contents. Then open Rectangle and Rectangle Path 1. Increase the roundness value. This will give the corners a smoother and more modern look. Now let's center the anchor point of the shape layer. Next, let's add a simple animation. With the shape layer selected, press S to open the scale property. At the first frame, add a keyframe. Then move forward 30 frames and add another keyframe. Move forward another 30 frames and add a third keyframe. Now go back to the first keyframe and set the scale to 0. Go to the middle keyframe and increase it to 115 to create a slight pop effect. Then set the last keyframe back to the original value to complete the animation. Now select all keyframes and apply Easy Ease. Finally, open the graph editor and smooth out the motion curves. Now we repeat the same process on the AirPods layer as well. Now move forward 5 frames and bring the AirPods layer forward in the timeline. This way, the two layers won't appear at the same time, but in sequence. First the shape layer, then the AirPods will appear on screen. Now let's animate the stroke shape layer. Open the shape layer settings and from the Add menu, select Trim Paths. Open Trim Paths and set the end value to 0. Add a keyframe to the start value and move forward 50 frames, setting it to 100. Select all keyframes and apply Easy Ease. Finally, adjust the keyframe speed in the graph editor to make the animation smoother. Now let's animate the text layers. Select all text layers and press P to open the position property and add a keyframe. Move forward 50 frames and add another keyframe. Go back to the first keyframe and move the text layers outside the left side of the screen. Select all keyframes and apply Easy Ease. Then open the graph editor and adjust the speed. Now hold Shift and press T to open opacity and add a keyframe. Move forward 20 frames and add another keyframe. Go back to the first keyframe and set opacity to 0. Now, select all opacity keyframes, apply Easy Ease, and move them forward by 2 frames. With all layers selected, stagger them by 5 frames each. This way, all text layers will enter the scene one by one. Here we're not just adjusting text layers, but the timing of all layers. The goal is to make every element in the scene appear in a smooth, well-synchronized order. So we shift the layers in the timeline with a consistent rhythm. This makes the animation feel more balanced, fluid, and professional. Now let's add a light to our 3D models. Right-click and go to New, then select Light. In the Settings window, set Light Type to Environment and enable Casts Shadows. Now add the HDR lighting layer to the scene and select it as the source. Then open the Transform settings and adjust the light direction. This creates more realistic lighting and reflections on the model. Great! Everything is going well so far. Now let's move to the right timing and create the exit of all elements and the final iPhone logo reveal. First, select all layers and go to the Edit panel to duplicate them and bring them to the top. Now we pre-compose these layers. Here we may notice that the visual gets distorted, but we'll fix that right away. Enable the 3D checkbox on the pre-comp layer. Then, open the gear-like settings icon and activate the additional options. This fixes the issue completely and keeps the scene working correctly. Now here we will reverse the timing of this layer. With the layer selected, go to the Time menu and choose Time Reverse Layer. This makes the layer play backwards from end to beginning. Now find the exact moment where the video fully plays. Once you find it, use Split Layer and delete the beginning part. Repeat the same process for the other layers as well. Select the layers and apply Split Layer again, then remove the ending parts. Now we do fine adjustments. The more detailed your work is, the cleaner and more professional the final result will be. Now let's add the Apple logo to the composition. Open the Scale property and reduce its size. Then bring in the iPhone logo and also scale it down, positioning it properly relative to the Apple logo. To center both logos more precisely, turn on Title/Action Safe so we can clearly see the center of the frame. Now align both the Apple logo and the iPhone logo perfectly to the center of the scene. Now let's move both layers to the end of the animation. We'll add a bounce animation to the Apple logo. For this, I'm using the Animation Composer plugin. From the Motion Preset section, I select a suitable animation and click In to apply it. Now, at the very end of the animation, I create a null object and place it at the center of the Apple logo. I parent the Apple logo to this null object. Then I select the null object and open Position, adding a keyframe. Move forward 50 frames and add another keyframe. Go back to the first keyframe and place the Apple logo exactly at the center of the composition. Select all keyframes and apply Easy Ease. Finally, open the graph editor and adjust the speed curves. This makes the Apple logo appear at the center first, then smoothly move to the left for a dynamic final motion. Now select the iPhone layer and open the Position property to add a keyframe. Go to the last keyframe and add another one. Return to the first keyframe and move the iPhone logo to the left side of the Apple logo. Select all keyframes and apply Easy Ease. Then, open the graph editor and adjust the motion speed. Now, we'll make the iPhone logo appear from inside the Apple logo. To do this, select the Pen tool and draw a proper shape over the Apple logo. Link this shape layer to a null object. Then move the shape layer to the top and set the iPhone layer as a track matte. This way, the iPhone will only appear inside the shape area, creating the effect that it is coming out of the Apple logo. Finally, adjust the timing of when it appears. Now trim the composition to 8 seconds. Then select all layers and enable motion blur. That's it! We've completed our iPhone product animation from start to finish. In this process, we saw how simple steps can turn into a more professional, cinematic-level product animation. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to follow the channel for more After Effects tutorials like this. See you in the next video with more advanced techniques.